President Muhammadu Buhari has arrived in New York for the one-week 72nd session of the UN Assembly. Gold slipped to its lowest level in over 2 weeks today as the dollar and equities rallied. And Mexican women have staged a protest rally in the capital Mexico City. Ida Whitson was knocked out of the Seoul Open at the first hurdle. Welcome to news on the African Broadcasting Network. I'm Okiem Tifekuji about the news in full. President Muhammadu Buhari has arrived in New York to join other world leaders for this one-week 72nd session of the UN General Assembly high-level event starting tomorrow. The president, who was accompanied by the governors of Zamfara, Ebonyi, and Ondo State, was received at the John F. Kennedy Airport by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Godfrey Oyema, and permanent representative of Nigeria to the UN, Professor Tijani Bande. President Buhari will deliver Nigeria's national statement tomorrow, the first day of the general debate. He has been listed as the 8th Speaker of the 193 head of states expected to address the general debate of the General Assembly. The theme of this year's debate is focusing on people striving for peace and a decent life for all on a sustainable planet. The president will also join other world leaders at the welcoming reception to be hosted by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and hold a bilateral meeting with the UN chief. It is expected that the president and members of his delegation will project Nigeria as a strong moral force and responsible member of the international community, as Nigeria's commitment to global peace, security and development will also be reaffirmed, with the need for increased international cooperation in the fight against corruption. The Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, said loading of products including aviation fuel would stop from today as affiliates of United Labour Congress of Nigeria ULC begin an indefinite strike. Also, electricity workers on the platform of National Union of Electricity Employees NUEE, National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers NAPI, and National Union of Railway Workers have also asked members to down tools and join the strike. However, leaders of the National Union of Banks, Insurance and Financial Employees NUBI-FRE says members may not effectively join the strike today because the union just concluded its delegates conference weekend, adding that members would fully join should the strike persist. But the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC and the Trade Union Congress TUC insisted yesterday that the ULC was fake since it was not recognized by the government, and urged Nigerians to ignore the group. Similarly, the Federal Ministry of Labour also held on to its earlier position that the ULC was not recognized by the federal government. And the business news. Financial analysts have forecast a mix of profit-taking and bargain hunting in the Nigerian equities market this week. This forecast is made following a bearish market recorded last week, which led to the decrease in the twin performance indicators, all share index and market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange NLC. Specifically, analysts from Vetival Capital Management stated that they expect the market to follow similar trends this week with mixed sentiments by investors. Market closed bearish. Meanwhile, a review of the market performance last week showed that the NLC all-share index and market capitalization dropped by 235 BPS and 263 BPS to close at 35,005.57 points and 12.7 trillion naira respectively. On a year-to-date base, the NSE, ASI and market capitalization increased by 3,026 BPS and 3,051 BPS respectively, the NSE Banking Index, the NSE Insurance Index, the NSE Consumer Goods Index, and the NSE Industrial Index all closed in negative territory, losing through 230 BPS, 33 BPS, 252 BPS, and 439 BPS to close at 424.92 points. 136.95 points, 941.55 points, and 1,942.2 points respectively. Gold slipped to its lowest level in over 2 weeks today as the dollar and equities rallied, while prospects of monetary policy tightening in the United States ahead of a Federal Reserve meeting also weighed on the metal. Spot gold was down 0.3% at $1,315.36 an ounce by 6:58 GMT. Earlier in the section, gold hit 1,314.36, its lowest since August 31st, and U.S. gold futures for December delivery fell 0.5% to $1,319 an ounce. The two-day Fed Open Market Committee meeting, which begins tomorrow, will be closely watched by markets at the U.S. Central Bank is expected to announce its balance sheet reduction plans while keeping interest rates unchanged in an effort to normalize monetary policy. Gold is highly sensitive to rising U.S. interest rates, which increase the opportunity cost of holding the non-yielding assets while boosting the dollar in which the metal is priced. Meanwhile, data showed speculators raised their net long position in COMEX gold contracts for the 9th straight week, bringing it to a one-year high in the week to September the 12th. In other precious metals, silver slipped 0.4% to $17.51 an ounce after earlier hitting its lowest since September the 1st. Platinum rose 0.4 to $967.90 an ounce, while palladium gained just over 1% to $933.40. And on news from around the world. Chief Justice David Maragall will constitute a bench to determine whether Third Way Alliance leader Ekuru Aukot should participate in the October the 17th repeat poll. Supreme Court Deputy Registrar Daniel Olel Kewal on Thursday directed the file be placed before the CJ immediately. Aukot protested exclusion from the poll after IEBC says only Jubilee's President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA's Rahili Odinga will be on the ballot, noting that he has the constitutional right to participate in the French presidential election, having been a contender in the August 8th general election. The politician says the electoral agency can only limit the number of candidates in a presidential election under circumstances contemplated in Article 138 sub 5(6) in the Constitution, which is not the case currently. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held talks in New York with the UAE Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, with the pair discussing the latest developments in the Middle East. According to official statement, el-Sisi and bin Zayed discussed the various crises in the region, which are expected to be discussed at the 72nd United Nations General Assembly starting this week. El-Sisi emphasized the need to enforce joint Arab efforts to prevent interference in the internal affairs of Arab nations, as well as attempts to destabilize Arab states. The two men discussed UAE-Egypt relations, with bin Zayed expressing the Emirates' appreciation for the high level of cooperation and coordination between the two nations. Zayed is heading the Emirati delegation at the UNGA, which is taking place at the UN headquarters in New York. According to the presidential statement, el-Sisi is due to deliver a speech to the UNGA next Tuesday. Mexican women have staged a protest rally in the capital Mexico City. More on these after this break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Mexican women have staged a protest rally in the capital Mexico City demanding justice in the case of a young woman who was kidnapped and murdered, and other similar protest rallies were staged in other Mexican cities. Thousands of demonstrators marched on Sunday from Mexico City's Zocalo or Central Plaza to the Attorney General's office, where they staged performances denouncing inaction of the authorities in the face of violence against women. Mara Castella's body was found on Friday in the neighboring state of Puebla, 1 week after hiring a cab from a ride-sharing app called Cabify, similar to Uber. Prosecutors says the Cabify driver kidnapped Mara, a 19-year-old student, and took her to a hotel where he sexually assaulted her and strangled and beat her to death. Afterward, he dumped the body in an area near a hotel. The alleged killer was identified only as Ricardo N. Castella's murder was the 83rd of a woman documented in Puebla this year by civic organizations and 59th publicly acknowledged by the state attorney's office. China has reported on Monday that China and Russia have started joint naval drills near North Korea between Peter the Great Bay, just outside the Russian far eastern port of Vladivostok, that was not far from the Russian border with the North Korea, with the southern part of the Sea of Okhotsk to the north of Japan, amid continuing tensions, chiefly between Pyongyang and Washington, that risks turning into military conflicts. The drills come at a particularly tense time in the region. North Korea's missed and military nuclear programs, long opposed by the U.S. and its allies in the region, have been rapidly advancing in recent months. Japan and South Korea have been looking to the U.S. for protection against what they see as a hostile North Korea. On Friday, Pyongyang fired a missile over Japan for the second time in 3 weeks, but Japan claimed not shot down missiles that fly through its airspace but do not directly target it, and has only been able to eat up rhetoric against North Korea because of constitutional restrictions. Last Monday, stringent sanctions drawn up by the U.S. were passed at the United Nations Security Council without opposition, that both China and Russia are permanent members, which they wield a veto power. But why they have had differences with the U.S. on how to deal with North Korea, they opted not to veto the latest sanctions resolution. Beijing and Moscow are opposed to the North Korean weapons programs but believe the issue has to be resolved via dialogue, and they have proposed a double freeze to end the dispute for North Korea to end its military nuclear program, as the U.S. would halt its joint annual exercise with South Korea, which is not gained traction. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, has warned that North Korea will be destroyed if it continues its reckless behavior, as President Donald Trump fired a fury comment last month were not an empty threat. She says on Sunday that the UN Security Council has run out of options following North Korea's recent nuclear tests and missile launches. U.S. National Security Advisor Mark Marshall says that Trump being very clear about the option of launching a military strike against North Korea, and that all options are on the table. He said that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is going to have to give up his nuclear weapons because the president says he is not going to tolerate this regime threatening the United States and our citizens with a nuclear weapon. On Sunday, Trump taunted Kim Jong-un, referring to him as a rocket man, by saying the country's citizens were queuing for patrol because of sanctions. The UN Security Council voted to reduce petrol exports and restrict crude oil supplies to North Korea in response to its sixth nuclear test, the most powerful so far. Hale said sanctions had caused North Korea to be cut off from the world, but there is a little evidence of quills for petrol in the country, as Trump suggests. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said he was waiting the Kim Jong-un to engage in constructive, productive talks. On Friday, North Korea fired a missile over Japan's northern Hokkaido island, which landed in the Pacific Ocean. Let's join Anna for some sport news.
Thanks, Okemutian, on Sport News. Former England captain Wayne Rooney has appeared in court and admitted drink driving. He was arrested when police stopped a car in Wilmslow, Churchill in the earliest hour on 1st September. The 31-year-old was released on bail after being charged with driving while over the legal limits. He appeared at Stockport Magistrate Court a day after returning to Old Trafford for the first time since rejoining Everton. Still on sport, tournament director of Robin World Cup, Alan Gilpin, said that the organizer of the 2019 Robin World Cup in Japan have not been sufficient progress in key areas and must pick up the pace of preparation. With Asia's first Robin World Cup just 2 years away, Gilpin expressed his concern after a third round of tournament review meetings this year in Tokyo on Sunday. Gilpin and his team evaluated operational areas, team services, venues, ticketing, tournament budget and host city operations for the September 20th November 2019 tournament. Wednesday marks the 2-year countdown for the event, and Japan will mark the milestone by parading the Web Airlines Cup in host cities and the country's top league clubs over 46 days. Gilpin said that all stakeholders, which includes governments and host cities, will need to continue to play their parts to ensure a successful event that advances rugby on the domestic and global stage to show the best of the Japan as a host to the world. On tennis, Hilda Wurtzin was knocked out of the Seoul Open at the first hurdle as she lost 6-3, 0-6, 6-1 to Sarah Sorribes-Tormor. Hilda Wurtzin, who had moved back into the top 100 after reaching the third round at Wimbledon, has now failed to get past the first round in Korea in 4 attempts. Sorribes-Tormor, ranked 14 places lower than Wurtzin, booked serve 4 times in the final set to advance after 1 hour and 36 minutes. The Spaniard will now take on third seed Kristina Pliskova or wildcard Han Neely in the next round. Priscilla On emerged victorious over Czech Republic Karolina Muchova after a tight affair which saw the Australian win 6-1, 4-6, 6-4, while Katarina Zabaska beat Brazil Beatriz Haddad near 4-6, 6-3, 3-0 to reach the second round as well, where she is joined by Lucica Comcom and Ekaterina Alexandrova. Romania drew Irina Kamalia Begu and Sorina Christie also managed to advance through to the second round on Monday after victorious over Barachia, Won Chinchan and Sihon Eguchi. That's it on our sport bulletin. Let's join Okemote for the top story that made the headlines. I am Anna Olutayo.